Good afternoon, everyone. Everyone who's in New England, that is. It's afternoon. This is Jane Johnson. I'm the president of Business Transition Academy, and we thank you for joining our webinar today. Every month or two, we like to hold webinars for both owners as well as advisors on important topics related to businesses and business transition. And in just a minute, I'll be introducing our speaker, Keith Loris, today. I wanted to put this topic in a little bit of context and give you just a very quick background on Business Transition Academy. I'm a founder of Business Transition Academy, and the whole goal behind Business Transition Academy was to help educate our business owner clients on how to maximize the value of their company and how to plan and execute successful business ownership transitions. And since I started doing this work about 10 years ago, I've had the opportunity to work with over 90 clients at this point, and everybody has a different situation. But one of the most common themes that we have is business owners needing to grow their company. A lot of our business owner clients don't want to transition the ownership for 5 or 10 years. And as we know, a healthy, profitable company floats all boats, and it enables business owners to transition their shares either internally or externally in some cases. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But our mission at the Academy is to assist owners in developing their plan and really to educate owners on all these important topics. So to that end, we have white papers, blogs, and videos on the website. We have consulting services. I'm a transition mentor. So sometimes we work one-on-one with clients who need assistance. And we have some training courses as well at the Academy. We also have a very short book called Cashing Out of Your Business, Your Last Great Deal, that I co-wrote with Kathy Richardson Morrow. And in that book, we provide an introduction to business ownership transition planning and why it's necessary for all owners to plan well in advance. In addition to that, we define what a business ownership transition plan is. And here is our definition for what we call our BOTP. It's a comprehensive written document that outlines how and when the ownership of a business will be transferred to others, either internally or externally, in order to achieve the owner's goals. So that's our definition. And what we did in the book is we outline a 6-step process that all owners can use to develop an ownership transition plan. And of course, if owners plan 3 to 5 years in advance, they'll have a lot more options than if they wait until the last minute. So very, very quickly, the 6 steps in the process are, first of all, getting yourself prepared, and that's all about the owner's goals and their vision for the transition. Step 2, counting beans, is all about how much money the owners need to net from the business transition. In this step, owners are really taking a hard look at what they spend and what their cash flow is on an annual basis and how much money they're going to need from the transition to be financially independent for the rest of their lives. So a very important number we call the wealth gap. In step 3, building a better box, that's all about the company. And our topic today will fit squarely into this step. In building a better box, we're talking about how business owners can, first of all, understand the current value of their company, and then how they can maximize the value of the company. Because whether owners plan to do an internal or an external transfer at some point in the future, as we said, a healthy, profitable company floats all boats. In our step 4, called Follow the Yellow Brick Road, we're looking at the different options that owners have for transitioning the ownership. There are multiple ways that owners can transition the ownership internally through things like employee stock ownership plans, stock redemption plans, management buyouts, or externally to outside buyers. We talk about strategic buyers, private equity buyers, and financial buyers. So we cover all the different range of options. And then owners in step 5, called the art of the deal, will understand how to go through the selling process with them and what kind of money they would actually net from each one of those strategies. In step 6, we call paint by numbers. We pull it all together, and essentially owners are able to figure out what their options are by looking at all these different pieces. So that's the 6-step process that we outline in our book. As I mentioned, on occasion, every month or two, we like to do webinars, and we often ask our Business Transition Academy partners to join us on those webinars. I met Keith Loris, a couple of years ago now at least, and Keith has a very interesting model and approach to marketing. And as we know, marketing and sales are critical for businesses to grow revenue and to grow bottom line as well. So today we've asked Keith to join us. We previously did another webinar on marketing that was how exiting owners can maximize value. Today we've asked Keith to really talk about just the principles of marketing, kind of getting back to the basics. So with that, I'm going to click over to Keith's slides and ask him to introduce himself and take it from there. And then at the end, we'll reserve hopefully 8 to 10 minutes for some questions. So take it away, Keith.
Great. Thank you very much, Jane. Pleasure to be here this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, depending on where you folks are on the net. As you can see, it's called Cutting Through the Clutter, and we're really going to focus on the essential basic elements we at Sales Renewal believe pretty much every business needs on some level to grow their sales. The challenge most small businesses have is that they don't have a very, very deep marketing bench. I mean, people are very time stressed and so on. And they tend to therefore rely on outside marketing agencies more than big companies do. The problem with that is that ad firms, PR agencies, SEO firms, website developers, printers for direct mail, in the name of the firm, they're basically saying they're a single tactic agency. They help you with advertising or PR or SEO or what have you. The problem there is that almost every single marketing problem is multidisciplinary. And you get into a challenge when you're using not the appropriate firm to just focus, to do a single strategy firm to solve a multidisciplinary problem. The other problem is because of the time pressure, there's not a lot of time to think, to reflect, to do analysis, deep thinking, and so on. And that old saying about measuring twice, cutting once, often doesn't happen. So you tend to go with your gut. My problem is I need more advertising to bring people to the site, or I need to rank better in Google, so you're an SEO firm. That's your intuition, which is often right, but it doesn't always work correctly. And another approach might be you call a friend or your brother-in-law, and what do you do to grow your leads? And they propose something, and the fact that their business might be very different than yours, it's a reference. This is a good guy. It's a good advertising guy. Whether advertising solves my most critical problem, I don't have time to think about that. The result is generally expensive disappointment. So small businesses' view of marketing is often not very positive. The other part of this problem is the fact that there are thousands of vendors. And this is where the cutting through the clutter of the title comes from. A lot of small business people I know, you get the deer in the headlights look of like, oh my God, there are so many different ways I can do this, I can't think about it, right? And so they go with their gut or they call their brother-in-law. So what we at Sales Renewal have tried to do is boil this big universe down to the essential elements every business needs, okay? And we further actually personalize these into these 8 characters. As an example, the 5th one, social media and PR. It's social media and a bunch of different PR tactics. PR is sort of an advanced subject. It's not something every business could use. For certain businesses, it's critical, but it's not sort of universal, and so it's not on this list, right? We're just going to focus on social media. And you can see the rest of the different kinds of things we're talking about. And this is basically the agenda of this seminar. We're going to go through each of these strategies, each of these characters. I also want to point out the character on the right there, that marketing today requires a boatload of technology. It's not just hiring a person. It's also a bunch of tools that they're going to need. All right, so we're going to walk through the different ones. We're going to start with the strategy piece. And what's in it for me has always been critically important in marketing, but in today's web world and busy, overstretched world, it's critically important. It's even more important than it used to be in the past. I mean, at times we internally joke we have microseconds to get somebody to decide to open that email, not click off the website or what have you. So we really have to keep thinking about this. It's very hard. It seems easy, right? What's the benefits, right? A lot of businesses, a lot of professional services firms, they'll start talking about their resume when they're networking and the schools they went to and the projects they worked on. And the prospect doesn't care. You need to translate your skills and experience into a benefit for me, and you have a minute to do it in the networking scenario, right? And so that's really what's in it for me is about. It'll come up again later on. I want to go back to Marketing 101 and the notion of the sales funnel. There are a lot of different versions of this. and just kind of walk through this fictitious company we have that sells electric fences for pets. And in our simplified version of the sales funnel, there are just a couple of different steps. The first one is visitor one. And this is a person who's got a problem. I don't want my dog to run away. And they're wondering, are there solutions and what are my options to address this, okay? Now, the thing that people often forget about the visitor one is that you probably have a lot of competitors out there, but they're not necessarily companies. So, in the case of an electric fence company, a hardware store is a competitor because somebody can buy a rope and tie the dog to a tree, right? Another option is I don't let the dog out of the house. That's no dollars involved at all. So there are many broad ways to solve problems, some of which are commercial, and that's really what Visitor One stage is about. Now, in terms of search engine activity, you can see the two bullets below there. Somebody might be typing in Google, how to keep my pet safe, or humane ways to contain my dog, leaving him in the backyard in the sun. Is that cruel, right? And we're going to use those to sort of illustrate that the actual search terms give you a clue as to what stage of the sales funnel somebody might be. So visitor two has now decided, okay, I want electric fences. I don't want to get a hardware store rope, right? But there are a lot of different fence companies out there, right? There are a lot of different competitors, and so which is the one that's best for me? This is the world, for instance, where testimonials and reviews become really important, right? Because you're differentiating your firm from the next firm. The next step is, okay, I like Sit Stay Home, which is our fictitious electric fence company, but they got a bunch of products. Which ones of those is the best for me? What's the right price performance? And again, you can see the kinds of searches people might be doing at these different steps of the funnel. Finally, they purchase. And people often forget that's not the end of the sales funnel. They're now a customer, but you have upsell opportunities. You can sell them additional services, different products, and things like this. And you really need to keep all these different steps of the sales funnel in mind. The thing about selling to an existing customer, that's the most profitable sale. You don't have the cost of customer acquisition. You've already borne that. So an incremental revenue for an existing customer is going to be much more profitable. Another important point here is that needs these people are expressing via Google or looking at reviews or what have you are really revealing quite a bit about them. They're revealing kind of what stage in the funnel. If you got an email from somebody in the visitor one and you put a really hard sell on them, you should really buy my fence, it's the greatest thing, and they're still thinking about fences versus ropes, that's not going to be very attractive. Somebody who's in the prospect stage, they're ready to buy and they're ready to be closed, so sales can handle those people appropriately. So you have to keep in mind the lighter touch at the top of the funnel and the focus on the close towards the end. Another thing about this expensive disappointment is that planning would remove most of it. It's a truism that if you fix a bug in the design stage, it's much, much cheaper than building the code and then having to change the code. And so a little example here is, I don't know what my problem is. I'm not getting enough leads off my website. I talked to my brother-in-law. He had a really good ad agency. He was very satisfied. And I hire them. They do their thing, and they're bringing more visitors to the site. So I think this is cool. However, if the fundamental problem was poor site design, you've hired a great vendor, but they're solving the wrong problem. So by the wrong problem, what I mean by that is there are many reasons why a site might not be generating enough leads for you. One of them might be not enough traffic. If that's your problem, advertising is a really good solution. But by the way, so is search engine optimization. There are a couple of different ways to bring more traffic to your site. So even if that's your problem, you shouldn't necessarily just assume advertising is the answer. You have to pay per click. We'll talk about this later on. It could be an expensive way to solve the problem. But if the most common reason why websites don't generate very good leads, however, is they're not designed very well. They're not designed to convert a visitor who's anonymous on your site into a lead who's raised their hand and either submitted a form with their contact info or they've called you and you can talk to them and so on. And that's generally the most common problem. The challenge here is if you are talking to the ad firm, since they only sell ads, they're unlikely to tell you what, take 8 months, go fix your website, call me when you're done. It's not in their economic interest to do that. That's why you have to take some effort to think about what the problems are and who are the right vendors that can help you. In this scenario here, You've hired a really good advertising vendor, but they're working on the wrong problem because your fundamental problem is the site design. Your ad dollars are being spent inefficiently. If you had done things in the right order, you improve the conversion ability of the website, and then you turn on the traffic generators. For the same ad dollars, you'd be getting many more leads. What's particularly insidious about this problem is that it's invisible to you. You're getting more leads. You think it's working great. It's just in theory, if you'd done things in the right order, you would have gotten more leads for the same ad dollars. The first step here is to start with the really big picture. You have to think about your business, your competitors, what you're spending, what your goals are. As Jane was saying, if you're 5 years from trying to sell your business and the number you need to hit when you're selling, you're far away from that number, you think, oh, I really got to I got to double my revenue in 5 years. That's one marketing budget. Another budget, if you want to grow 5% a year, that's a different marketing budget. So that's an important thing that sort of sets the budget ballpark. And then your time frames. Is this 1 year? Is it 5 years? You have to be very honest and think about your strengths and weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And really focus on your competitors. Spend time on their website. Another really important thing is the right percent of revenue to invest. I really like this cartoon on the right there because most small businesses are astounded when they see that the US SBA says about 7 to 8% of revenues in marketing. Is a sort of a general rule of thumb there. Of course, that varies quite a bit. If you have a strong competitive offering, if your competitors are weaker, obviously that number could adjust. But nothing free in life. And if you want to grow your business, you have to invest in growing it. That's sort of the larger overall percent of revenues invested in marketing. But then, of course, there are lots of different marketing programs and tactics. What's the right budget level for each becomes an important question that needs to be resolved. Then you got to start thinking deeper about what are your actual benefits? What's in it for your customers? Who are their customers? You have different kinds of customers. We have many clients that are both a business to consumer business and also a business to business website. And you have to use the right benefits, the right language, the right terminology. For the consumer versus the business could be very different. One might use technically precise language. The other one is going to use slang and so on. You have to figure out your strengths and your weaknesses. And very importantly, you have to think about your sustainable competitive advantages. We meet a lot of businesses where they talk about what their advantages are. They start talking about motherhood and apple pie. They're high quality. They're the best customer service. You can trust us. And the thing is, we're all really good consumers in America, and that's completely unbelievable. There's no company that runs around and says, we're the schlocky vendor. So as good consumers, we've learned to literally ignore unsubstantiated claims like the best or highest quality. What we generally advocate is you have to take your advantages and make them believable and compelling. And as an example, one of our clients is a sign manufacturer, and in the sign industry, a 1-year warranty is the typical warranty you get when you purchase a building sign or any kind of sign. For this client, we actually proposed to them in one of our early planning sessions that we offer a 3-year warranty so that we could trumpet the marketing claim was going to be triple the industry standards warranty. When we pulled the CFO off the floor and we ended up working with him and worked through their numbers, it turned out they are the high quality vendor. Their signs do last longer, they need less maintenance and so on. And he realized, you know what, I can afford this thing. Now, what we did there, if you think about it conceptually, we took the unbelievable high quality marketing claim and we turned that into a legal claim in the contract. I mean, they're obligated for 3 years. So it's very believable, very compelling. Under the covers, we're still making a quality claim, but we're just doing it in a very believable manner. The thing about marketing, no matter how big or small your budget, how much time you spend in it, I'm pretty sure those are relevant numbers to you. It could be a really small company to Exxon, but it could be critical to the corner grocery store. And the problem is that project management is a necessity. If you're going to work on multidisciplinary, multi-channel complex problems, you have to do the website first, then you turn the ads on. You have to make sure that the people involved in the website are available when you need them, the right tools are there. You have to continuously manage marketing. In that way, it's sort of like a factory. It's like a manufacturing system where continuous improvement is critical. Now, luckily, there are many tools out there. You can do some things, basic things in Excel. So there are various commercial online project management tools that kind of simplify this. But the thing is, sequencing and ordering and planning it out is really necessary if you're going to try and get the returns you're looking for. Analytics is critically important because it's addressing the issue that this is all expensive, as I just said, in time and dollars. And so you need to know where your visitors and leads coming from and which of our activities that have generated those visits or leads. And you want to do more of what's working and less of what's not working so that over time you become more efficient. There are 4 ways a lead comes to you. People often forget this, especially with the prominence of the web nowadays. Most people think about the website. The website is generating leads, and Google has this very powerful analytics program it gives out for free called Google Analytics that can track submits from a website very well. But every business has other means. People call you on the phone, people will send you email, and of course, there's in person. I mean, if you're a retail store, that's the main one. If you're trying to figure out and benchmark your marketing, you have to make sure you're tracking the activity from all these different ways these leads are coming to you, because otherwise you're going to get an incomplete picture. If you only are benchmarking submits from a website and you're ignoring phone calls, let's say, well, there's probably different psychographics. People who work on the web, who use the web, that's a certain psychological profile. They're the ones who are going to get the submits from. My wife, for instance, will never buy anything from an e-commerce site. She'll go to the store. She can be reached via other things, but if you're only focusing on the web activity, you're ignoring other sorts of people, so you're not going to get the complete picture. The other thing about this is that, as I mentioned, it's a continuous improvement thing. The world is always changing, your competitors are changing, your goals are changing, the search engines are changing, their ranking algorithm, Facebook is changing what it does with likes and so on. So this is a continuous improvement thing. You really want to start with a sort of high-level plan that I mentioned, and then you really want to evolve that into a quarterly plan where you actually have the budgets and all these different marketing tactics, and you can reassign things that this one's working better than that. Let's take some money from there, move it over here. And then even a monthly review. How's it going this month? And the key to all of this is the analytics. I wanted to mention inbound marketing because it's such a popular subject nowadays. And so on the left column is inbound marketing. Particularly if you're trying to figure some of the questions this seminar is trying to address, trying to figure this out on your own by searching on the web, you can see a lot of stuff about inbound marketing. And the basic idea with inbound marketing is that it gets the prospects to come to you via the content you produce and via social media. The strength of that is that it gives you very qualified, educated prospects. One of the weaknesses of that is you're not in control. If Google changes its algorithms or Facebook changes its policies, your entire marketing plan can go out the window. The right-hand column is what traditional marketing really entails. It's what most people think of as marketing. It's not sitting back and waiting for them to come to you. It's spreading the word about your business. So that's advertising, telemarketing, trade shows, PR, and so on. It's been the way marketing is done forever. It's the best way to reach the widest possible audience in the shortest amount of time. And for certain kinds of businesses that are expensive or complicated, those are really, really important marketing tactics. Nobody's going to buy a $40,000 product because they read a blog post. The problem with traditional marketing, and it's one of the reasons why inbound marketing has come up, is that targeting is critical. If you're reaching out and trying to find where they are and tell them something, you've got to be really good at targeting them. It also requires a lot of different marketing skills to implement all these different kind of strategies. Inbound marketing at its heart is writing. And a lot of business owners say, I can write well, I can write these things. And so they tend to go off into inbound marketing. The question is, which is better? And the truth is, neither. They're both fine. It's really, the truth is, most businesses need a mix of both. It's not that one is better than the other. Again, but when you're reading stuff on the web about it, they're going to kind of downplay some of the other things. Part of that, frankly, is because inbound marketing is something that a venture capitalist can fund. It's basically software that does marketing, as opposed to software that's an e-commerce site or something. So there are a lot of VCs that are crowded into the space, create a lot of inbound marketing companies who are spending all their dollars to get you to use inbound marketing. Personally, I think it's a little bit of a bubble. Other marketing has stood the test of time. And you can kind of see this. When you look at the really big companies, they are skewed very heavily to advertising and sponsorship. The entire market for inbound marketing software is about $20 billion. Advertising alone is 10 times as big. So if you look at where the world is putting its money as far as techniques, it tends to be more marketing. Now, again, I'm not trying to diss inbound marketing. For certain businesses, it's a great thing, and you'll see it's core to a lot of things I'm about to present. What I'm just trying to say is don't get duped by what you see on the web. You need a mix of things, and what the right proportions is going to be a function of your business. So we're going to start with now in-person marketing. This is face-to-face, and in the context of an essential, it's really networking, personal networking. And people love this. It can be very effective, especially for personal relationship sales, attorneys, CPAs, professional services firms, where trust and the chemistry is important. That's your first conversation with the prospect. It seems like it's a very low-cost thing. It seems like it's very easy to do. You just go to a meeting. You're there. You're getting the feedback. You see that they're puzzled by the way you said it, so you say it differently next time. And you can see that this is easy. You just go off and do it. The problems with networking is that it's probably the most expensive kind of marketing you're going to do, especially if it's a key person's time. It's the opportunity cost. If you're out there, you're not doing something else. It's also for a really good salesperson, they go to a networking meeting and they spend 2.5 hours and they leave with 2 business cards. As opposed to closing a deal, they're inefficiently generating leads. It's also really hard to benchmark. As I mentioned before, Google only cares about web, so you can't use that in the context of networking. And really, our emotions take the place of statistics, right? So you had a really good conversation with somebody, and you feel really good about it. That was a really good networking event. I'm so happy. The fact that 6 months later, nothing closed, you kind of forget that. You think, oh, networking was a great thing. So again, that's an example of going with your gut versus trying to do a more rigorous statistical approach. Networking, like everything else we're talking about here, can be continuously improved. You can refine the groups and the venues you go to. Of course, you can refine your pitch and test it and see what's working. You can try and increase the level of your emotional rapport so people can connect with you better and so on. The next subject is email marketing. We have a couple of different examples of what you can do in email marketing. I also want to point out that what's in it for me is especially critical for email marketing. That subject line is critical to get somebody to actually open the damn thing. It's a challenge nowadays. I don't know about you, but I get a flood of email every day. By the way, the difference between spam and helpful informational email is completely in the eye of the reader. There's no objective anything. If I have a particular problem and that email happens to address that problem, I think it's a brilliant thing. I wonder how they find me. Wow, I'm on their list. They must be really good, right? But the truth is, it's in somebody's head. That's particularly a challenge for businesses where your promotional offers are seasonal or time-based. It's not an ongoing need. Anyway, in terms of email, we kind of divide up into 3. There are promotional mailings. It's a typical kind of thing you might see from an e-commerce site. They'll show you the Valentine's Day floral order the week before Valentine's Day. You can click through and buy the order right off their website. And the what's in it for me is basically I'm going to get a deal or I'm going to get some useful information. Newsletters and digests, the goal of those is to move people through that sales funnel. Because a lot of what's going on there, if you think about it, is education. Oh, are there any solutions out there? Oh, there are a bunch of companies. Oh, this company I like the best. Oh, they got a bunch of That's all really education. And so there are various things you can do. You can have subscriptions from your blog. You can send out a monthly newsletter. Again, the point of this, or what's in it for me, is I found something useful for me. In the newsletter, we recommend for a newsletter as opposed to promotional email, a mix of one, maybe a little bit more promotion per issue. It should primarily be content that they can find useful, not necessarily your commercial content, because again, you want them to open it up. And if it's just a commercial for you, they're less likely to do that, especially over time. The third category that's often overlooked is customer service emails. Again, this is hitting on the idea of like incremental revenue from clients, where you want to solidify the relationship and generate repeat business. And you should not be doing the email yourself. You should pay for a professional service provider. They're going to give you some tracking ability. And very importantly, they're actually going to deliver the email. There's an arms race between people and spammers and the ISPs who host them, and it's challenging sometimes to get your email sent. If you ever get blacklisted, your business can't send email. It makes sense to use a professional services that's already dealt with those issues. There are various tips to building your opt-in list. Email is permission-based marketing. You don't want to just randomly be mailing to people. I'm not going to go through all this list. It's in the deck. But the basic idea is you want your default as much as possible to be, yes, I'm opted in, and they can uncheck it to opt out. that little flip of making the default be opt-in will increase your list quite dramatically. And then again, there's many things you can do in the real world, not just in the web, to grow your list. Talk about paid marketing. And again, in the context of the essentials, we're only going to be talking about online advertising. There are lots of other kind of paid marketing, direct mail and telemarketing. But again, those are a little bit more advanced subjects. So the advantage of online advertising is that it's pay per click. Traditional advertising, TV advertising, newspaper, is per impression. So Nielsen says a certain number of people watch a show, and the network negotiates, and you get a cost per thousand as the advertiser what you're paying for. In the world of online advertising, it's pay per click. From the advertiser's perspective, that's much more attractive than impression because the user took an action. They indicated some level of interest to learn more. They clicked the ad. As opposed to the TV commercial, you're in the John when the commercial's running or making a sandwich or whatever. The advertiser is still paying NBC for that. Another advantage is that you don't need a lot of money. You can start up as little as $250 a month as opposed to a print ad where you got to design the ad and it takes months and months ahead of time before the magazine hits and it's very expensive and so on. It's relatively easy to set up and Google is trying to make that even easier. And it's an immediate kind of a thing. I mean, you can literally turn the ads on and a second later, somebody can click on the ad and they're on your website. So you can turn them on, and you also, by the way, can turn them off. When you turn them off, Google does not display ads for free. If you turn it off at 11 o'clock, the ads are nowhere on the web. That's an interesting contrast to some of the other tactics which take a really long time to build up over time. And so one of the things you think about is combining the, quote, free things like SEO, content marketing. And so you do a lot of advertising in the beginning. When you're getting more traffic from the others, you can turn your ad spend down. The other nice thing about advertising is you can choose your keywords wisely. If you think again back to that sales funnel example, if your keyword is humane, you're targeting somebody in the first step of the sales funnel. So your ad can address those issues, the terms in the ad can make sense of those people and so on. So you have a nice ability to target. The really big challenge, it's pretty much impossible to become an expert. As you know, somebody running another business, you're not going to become an expert in comparison to an ad agency. AdWords alone has 300 different settings that need to be managed forever. It's a continuous improvement situation. And if you're not doing that, you are paying Google too much money. The other challenge, particularly for smaller business, the smaller the budget you have, the longer time it takes to see results. The advertising is inherently a statistical process. You don't want to make a big decision based on like 4 people clicked on an ad. You'd feel a little more comfortable with 400 or 4,000, that that's a really good ad. That decision is up to you, but the basic idea is the more activity, the more confidence you can have in the statistics that AdWords is revealing. The other part of that is just there are going to be fewer ad firms interested in your business because they're typically getting 20 or 25% of your ad spend is going to be their fee. So a smaller budget means less money for them. The work actually is probably the same, so it's a lot less profitable, hence there are a lot less vendors interested. Talk about the web marketing. In terms of the design of a website, you obviously have to have very logical navigation. When it comes to the names of the different sections in your website, we advocate a place of being very conservative. This is not where you want to be innovative and come up with cutesy names. People are used to the word about the company. You don't want to invent other things. Obviously, you want to make good use of visuals and layout. You have to make sure the text is well written, it's error-free. A lot of that is obvious. The one that maybe is not as obvious is you need to have calls to action on your critical pages, not every single page, but sort of the money pages on your website. Call to action is, what's the page selling to the reader? What do you want them to do next? Do you want them to submit a form? Do you want to go to another page? Should they download a white paper and so on? You want to make sure your site has content for the visitors in all the stages of the sales funnel. Again, small businesses tend to focus on that last step just before they're closed. But you always have to keep filling your funnel. If you want 1 or 2 people to fall out of the bottom of the funnel and close each month, you probably need 10, 20, or 100 to come into the top of the funnel every month. You want to make sure your site has some depth, that people who are interested can get in there and read it, and you want to make sure there's really good content, there's some weight to that content. Planning, as hopefully you're getting across here, is crucial for all the different kind of marketing tactics we're going through, but it's especially crucial for websites. I would talk to a retail business and I'll ask them, when you open your store, did you just like wing it? Did you come up with a plan? Did you think about what you needed to do and where the layout of your counters was going to be? Almost universally, the answer is yes. Well, the same thing is going to apply to your website, your e-commerce site, if you're going to do that. If you're a B2B business, if you think about it, your website is actually the primary image your prospects and customers and suppliers are going to have of your company. How many of them are actually going to come to your office? And so it's really the key to establishing your brand. And it's an unfortunate truth for you guys, maybe it's a good thing for me, but website design is a fashion business. And do you want to convey your business is old-fashioned? I'm sure you've all seen the new trend in websites that has a very long scrollable page. It has really, really big pictures that go from side to side. You can thank that particular style. You can credit your cell phone with that. On a mobile phone, it's hard to click links, but it's easy to scroll. And with the increasing importance of mobile, websites have really moved to a much more mobile-friendly design, and that's one of the issues. But if your site does not look like that, if your site is really very, very narrow, because in the beginning of the web, you had very slow dial-up speeds, and you couldn't have a lot of text or images to display, you're dating yourself. People will look at that and say, that's an old-fashioned site, that's a new site. So this is something you need to keep in mind. One of the tools we recommend is a simple Excel file when you're thinking about the plan for your website. So what you see here are the different rows in this Excel is a page that's going to be on your site. So you see up there, there's a home, there's our services, resources, and so on. Each column then has other information about that particular page, like is it targeting what stage of the funnel, the V1, V2, V3, visitor 4 stages? Is that content for that person there? What are the key concepts? What are the calls to actions? So before you do any work on your website, before potentially even hire a website developer, you can kind of go through this whole process here and make sure you've covered everything you need to cover. And this is a really good example. If you decide that you're missing a page or that the two pages in your Excel are too close together conceptually, they should be combined into one page, it's fantastically cheaper to fix that when you're in the Excel stage than after the content has been written on 2 pages and you got to now merge the text into one. Briefly talking about SEO, it's a long-term strategy to get prospects to the page that's most likely to convert them, that touches on what they're doing. It impacts a lot of other things, or is dependent on a lot of other different marketing tactics. And there are 2 main components to it. The first one is what most people often think of as on-page SEO. So these are the things on your website that a search engine can see. They can see the content. There are various technical factors like how long it takes for the page to load and so on. These things can often be done in-house, and that's one of the reasons why people often tend to focus on them. But there's another part of SEO, which is called off-page SEO, things that websites can see, search engines can see on other websites, not yours. And if you think about it, this is actually the Google success story. It was this off-page SEO that made the 2 Google founders multi-billionaires. I mean, their basic insight, if you think about it, when Google was first coming out, there were plenty of other websites out there. Web search engines. There was Alta Vista and so on. The insight those 2 grad students had was every search engine, when you typed in a string of letters, they would find all the pages, all the content that had that string of letters in them. The problem is most of the time it's overwhelming. 3 million pages have that phrase in it. So what the Google founders insight did, it solved that problem by how to order those 3 million pages. And their really simple idea was, you know what? Links from other sites to your sites are a pretty good proxy of how good your site is. If you have a lot of links from different sites, they're kind of voting when they're linking to you that they thought that content was good. That's why they're going to link to you. Importantly, also, websites are not equal. A link from the Wall Street Journal is much more authoritative than a link from the Concord Mass Journal. And so the quantity and quality of those links is what's off-page SEO. And this is really, really hard to do in-house. It's an incredibly tedious thing. It's going to other websites and other webmasters and asking for them to link to your content. It's a very challenging thing, but in many ways, it's more important than the on-page stuff. The on-page stuff is easy, and it's easy to do in-house. For businesses who are trying to market locally, there's a whole sort of subgenre about that. And basically, when it comes to SEO and local marketing, whenever there's a geographic term in the search, So if I search electric fences, Concord, Mass., that is literally a different search engine within Google that knows about local marketing. As a matter of fact, that's how they know you're local. By the way, if I'm in Concord, Mass., and I just type electric fences, Google will assume you're looking for local. So if you don't put a geographic reference in, it's going to say, based on where you are, I'm going to show you a bunch of local things, and it actually typically will put those up at the top of the page. The three benefits of local marketing is by creating these listing pages. So think about Yelp as an example. Yelp is a local marketing site. Out of the goodness of its heart, it's giving you a free page on a very popular website that you're in control of. You can put the text on there, you can put the images on there, you could also put your promotions on there. And the basic idea there is, don't just get them to come to your site. That's expensive, and you're not going to get everybody to come, so go to where they are. It also provides a strong SEO boost, as I mentioned. It's telling you telling Google where the local things are. And this statistic blows me away. The reviews, 88% of consumers trust online reviews as much as a personal recommendation. So these local marketing sites all have reviews, not just Yelp, all of them, most of them. And those reviews are a really important signal to consumers, especially younger consumers. So you need to not just get yourself on those sites, but you also have to monitor the reviews. And then finally, national listings, not just the local, are also important, coming from suppliers, trade shows, and things like this, press releases you might drop. There are a couple of different aggregators out there. We use one called Yext that basically for a monthly fee will get you on a whole bunch of different sites. And you have one interface where you can log in, you can update your listings on all these different sites, you can look at all the reviews from those different sites, and so on. Most of our customers find that to be a very cost-effective solution. Content marketing. So content marketing is creating content to attract qualified prospects. And there are different kinds of content. There's blogs or original content, meaning you sat down and wrote it. You wrote a white paper. There's also a newer phenomenon called curated content, which is content somebody else wrote, but you can put your own little insight on it. You could curate their content. You could put your spin on it, and that could be really useful. I mean, the problem we all have with the web is there's lots of information out there. The challenge nowadays is finding the good information. So one approach to a blog is that you can curate other people's content, put it on your blog with these comments, and playing the role of the editor of selecting the wheat from the chaff, that's a value, and people will start signing up for your blog, even if it's not 100% original content. And then, of course, whenever you create the content, there are different ways you have to distribute it across all these other different channels. The benefits of content marketing, as I said earlier, it moves you through the funnel, the sales funnel. And just like I said earlier about the keywords tell you about something about the prospect and what stage of the funnel, the content can be too. I mean, if you wrote a white paper about why it's cruel to leave your dog in the sun in the summer, that's clearly content targeted to somebody in the visitor one stage. When that person downloads the content, you can already assume they're in a visitor one stage. They're not ready for a salesperson to call them. Maybe you send them follow-on content of better things to do than leaving your dog in the sun. And you can build a whole lead nurturing campaign around that. The fact that you're constantly adding content is a strong signal to Google that you're a reputable company and you're in business. It, of course, allows you to target and speak to them because you can get different kinds of content that's different focus groups of prospects. And a really common use of content is as download bait. So you can imagine running an ad that talks about why is it cruel, learn why it's cruel to leave your dog in the sun. They come to your website, they give you their email address, and they download your white paper, why it's cruel to leave them in the sun, but now you have their email address. So the content was the bait to reward them for giving up their address. The thing about content marketing, it's potentially open-ending. We're talking about writing. So you have to really focus on your target audiences, be honest with yourself about what resources are available, how often do you want to do this, and what are your best platforms to get the content out. What you see on the right there is approach we advocate of write once, use many times. I mean, writing is hard. This is going to take some time. So, even if there was a method of ESP, of getting your thoughts into a Word document, you still have to think those thoughts. It's going to take some time. And so we really want to leverage the investment in the writing as much as possible across all your different channels. You can see in the left-hand column, you definitely want an editorial calendar. You don't want to be running around the night before you're supposed to publish in your blog. Oh, what am I going to write about? You should have a couple of weeks in the bank so you can just pull some evergreen content out when you didn't have any other brilliant thoughts. And you can have a mix of original content and curated content that can go out across all your different channels. Social media. The key here is understanding the networks, where are your customers, where do they hang out? Is that different from where your prospects hang out? The tendency today, especially if you start doing research online, is you got to be on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Google Plus and Instagram. Again, with a small business, it's better to do one well than do 5 half well. You want to post regularly. You want to grow your network organically over time, be interacting, and you follow them, they follow you. And you want to interact with those people. You want to praise them and compliment them, and that's over time how you build your network. An important thing about social media is the cocktail party rule. Nobody would walk into a cocktail party and start yelling after they arrived, start talking all about them. With social media, you want to make sure there's a mix of activities that are not excessively self-promotional, because nobody will follow you. Nobody's lacking for commercials in their life. They're doing it for various reasons. This is kind of like the email we were talking about earlier. You got to mix it in with information that's useful. What's in it for me? It's an ongoing thing. It's a two-way street. You connect with them, they connect with you. It's not something you do for a month and then forget about. It's an ongoing process. A little bit about the technology that's undergirding a lot of this stuff. So in terms of websites, I have a list there, DNN, WordPress, and so on. They're okay. If you're on one of these freebie website platforms, you might want to think about an upgrade. They do make it really easy to get something up, but the fact that they make it really easy, they put all these guardrails. They remove the kinds of things you could do so they can implement it as a self-service website builder. And so it's probably time to consider an upgrade if you want your website to do more things for you. If you've never updated your website, or you don't have a website, if you're dealing with HTML, you got to hire a programmer to do it. It's absolutely time to replace it. You want to make sure, as I mentioned earlier, the pages come up quickly. You can upload images to it. You can add analytics, tracking code, and so on. So that was a quick walkthrough, and obviously I hope folks understand this is sort of a breath conversation. I had to touch on a lot of different strategies, and so forgive me if I rushed at different times. What I'm going to do now is go into the commercial part of the presentation and just very quickly tell you a couple things about sales renewal. So we have an online survey called the Marketing Investment Analysis that answers the 3 most common questions we get. Okay, am I investing the right amount? What's the best tactics? What should the actual budgets be? You get a 4-page report. This is written by a person. This is not an automated process that kind of lays out what the different elements of your marketing budget. And the way to think about it is you're setting the financial ballpark. Okay, so this is the right, given my competitive situation, I should be investing 2%, 5%, whatever it is into marketing. Now I have a budget. Now I have to think about what part of that goes to the website, what about that goes to email, and so on. We're also, in honor of this seminar, we're going to give one of these away for free through the end of this month. It's normally $250 off our website. The randomly chosen is in case we get a whole bunch of requests. So if you are interested, please let Jane know. The next program up in our service offering is what we call Flex Marketing. And this is basically an on-demand guided marketing approach. And the idea here is that it's flexible in a couple of different ways. It's flexible in the amount of time each month we're going to help you with. And the idea there is you can benefit from expertise, and when somebody does some weird thing on Facebook, we can talk about what an appropriate response. And really the idea here, it's a combination of coaching and doing, so it's a coaching program. But the idea here is that you're going to get hands-on experience with what the right thing to do when somebody says Facebook. So instead of reading a blog post or doing an academic exercise, how should I do marketing, it's role modeling. We will work with you to figure it out. Like everything else with sales renewal, it's multi-tactic. It's any sort of thing within marketing we're willing to help you with. If the actual coach was not sure, again, we have all these other folks we can draw upon to answer your questions. And an important distinction is it's not a pure coaching program. It's not just yammering at you and adding all these things to your to-do list. It's also a combination of coaching and doing. And by doing, what we mean is we'll actually implement the thing for you. So a pretty classic scenario is in the coaching session, we'll work on editing an email you want to send out. And the doing session, we'll actually send it out for you. So it's a combination of educational, instructional, and implementation. The final way that this is flexible is that the ratio between coaching and doing is flexible. So generally, it's often about 50-50. So if you're doing a 4-hour a month flex marketing program, it'd be 2 coaching hours a month, an hour every other week, and 2 doing hours a month. But if you have a big project coming up and it fits in our schedule, we can ramp from the minimum of 3 hours to 10 hours in January, and then back to 3. If you have a project that you just want us to do, it's not much to coach on, we can be 100% doing. As a matter of fact, a local baker, we ended up redesigning his wedding cake brochure, and we just did doing for a couple of months. So it's very flexible. My view of this is sort of on-demand marketing, right? That you have this marketing team, and you get to choose how we're doing, how much, how little, what subject, on an ongoing basis. The last 2 ones I wanted to mention are our complete one-stop marketing solutions. And this is really what Sales Row focuses on. My early comments about the fact that there's so many vendors out there doing single tactic solutions to multi-disciplinary problems. That's really what we're offering. We offer complete one-stop marketing solutions. And so we have a program called Marketing Essentials, which is a way to jumpstart growth for the firms. It's a bunch of the things you saw earlier. It's a very significant 8 hours of coaching and doing a month. And the idea is at the end of the 6th month, you get a new strategy, you get a new WordPress website, and you've also spent 4 months hands-on working with us about marketing and the challenges and what are the right things for your specific business. That $2,500 a month is all in. The only thing that's not included is whatever you spend with Google for advertising. That's up to you. At the end of the 6 months, you're free to take all this knowledge and be part friends. You're free to obviously stay with Marketing Essentials, or you might choose to upgrade to the joint sourcing solution on the right. They're both complete one-stop marketing solutions. Marketing Essentials is the essential elements that every business could benefit from. Joint sourcing is a completely custom solution, specific for your business, and we have a very unique business model Jane alluded to earlier, where we share the risk and reward. We're not paid by the hour. We earn commissions, and we pay our share of the paid marketing expenses we recommend. This typically starts at $2,500 a month, and you can see the little graph there. It's worked pretty well. That's a client where the blue bars are the increasing number of leads, and then the yellow line is the decreasing cost per lead. And that's sort of nirvana for marketing. Leads up, cost down.
Keith, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. All I can say is, boy, has marketing gotten a lot more complicated than when I first started my business. So there's an awful lot to think about here. So if you have questions, folks, feel free to email Keith or call him directly. Keith, we appreciate your time. If there are any other BTA partners out there who would like to do a webinar, please email me, and would be happy to talk about a topic that might be appealing to our client base. So with that, I guess we'll sign off. Thanks very much to everyone who attended today. Take care.